how do you get UGC content? Where do I find UGC creators? How much do I pay them? What do I put on the contract? If you have any of those questions in this video, I'm going to be answering them. If you're new here, my name is Danae. I make marketing simple. If you're interested in marketing, consider subscribing and also signing up to my newsletter, the Digital Marketing Diaries, which you can find in the video description. Now, I specialize in copywriting and creative strategy. I've written hundreds of ad scripts and briefs for brands. I've sourced hundreds of creators. I have a keen eye for analyzing ad data and coming up with iterations and all of the things. I've generated over $3 million for D2C brands. So I have a lot of experience with UGC, and I get questions from brand owners all the time about finding UGC creators and what are the logistics of it. So I thought that this would be a good video to make, put out onto the internet, and I can also send it to people if they have these questions. But before I begin, I want to say that a lot of brands think that UGC is just going to be the thing that saves them. They're going to get a UGC ad, they're going to run it, and it's just going to crush and it's going to make them $1 million. But UGC isn't everything. You need obviously a good media buying strategy. You need good ad copy, the creator, the script. You need to understand the unique mechanism of your product. Your product has to be really good. There's so many factors that go into it. So I think it's really good to test out UGC. But I've honestly worked with brands where UGC just didn't really hit, and the more infomercial style salesy videos worked well. Maybe it's because of the demographic or the specific product, who knows? Even I've worked with brands who have a very, I would say, professional, higher class male audience, and UGC didn't really perform well for their brand either. So I think it's good to test, but it might not be the answer, and it might not be, you know, the best performing ad in your account, but it could be one that helps to get your product out there, and that's what matters. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there, but let's get into the UGC logistics. So there are different approaches you can take when looking for UGC creators. I work with some brands who are just doing really organic content, and they still want to use UGC to get B-roll to incorporate in the videos that they're posting on their platforms. And in order to do that, they have volunteers. Sometimes they'll say when they're testing products, they usually get volunteers to test them, and they'll ask those people that had really good experiences to do UGC, and we'll kind of just guide them on how to do it. And also another way that I know brands get UGC from their actual customers is sending out incentives. So maybe it's a gift card or a survey, anything like that. Just email to customers that are really engaged and the people, and getting on calls, and again, briefing these people on how to kind of film and create the content that we want. And these, honestly, I think tend to perform even better, or this content is even more powerful sometimes than UGC creators that are not actually consistent buyers of the brand, because these people have real stories and connections to the brand, and maybe the product really solved a problem in their life, so they're just going to show up with a stronger, better kind of on-camera presence. But yeah, there are different approaches. I'm going to specifically talk about now the approach where you're looking for a UGC creator outside of reaching out to your already existing audience / customers. So the main place that I use to find creators as a strategist, that's not any of the platforms. So there's a lot of platforms, Collabster, Incense. I don't even know if that's the name, Incense. Hopefully it is. There's a lot of different platforms, ambassadors that, you know, connect creators with brands. I think, in my opinion, if you really want to get UGC at scale, it's good to find the creators separately and have a fee for them to give you raw footage, and then have your own team of video editors, so that way you can use the footage in many different ways. And usually when you work with a UGC creator, a lot of the agencies or companies that provide UGC creators, they have them film a video and edit the video and then give you the raw content. I think that sometimes a lot of creators are really good at filming, but they might not understand direct response editing, which I think is really important and plays a big role in how the ad performs. So getting raw footage and then having a team of video editors that are sharks with direct response marketing is a really powerful thing to have, and also will allow you to make the video in so many different ways. You can take clips and you can change the hooks, and you can use different people for voiceovers and all that sort of stuff. And brands that are really doing UGC at scale, I find, use this technique. So how do you find a UGC creator to do something like this? Well, Twitter is the place that I tend to use, and there's definitely a huge UGC community of creators on Twitter. I actually have a video on my channel, multiple videos actually on my channel, where I share how UGC creators can get found, and I tell them to make an account on Twitter, because there's a lot of founders on Twitter. You probably have Twitter, you probably look at marketing insights on Twitter, you might have found me on Twitter. But yeah, there's a big UGC community on Twitter, and if you just type in search and type in UGC creator skincare, UGC creator middle-aged, UGC creator 25, anything like that, any search word, you'll see a lot of tweets with UGC creators responding under them, or you might lead you to a UGC creator that has it in their bio, something along those lines. and then from there you can take a look at their portfolio, their work, and see if they were a good fit for you. So what do you look for when you do the search on Twitter? You find a creator, you think, okay, she looks good or he looks good. How do you know if they're someone you should reach out to? I would say that it's good to like take a look at all of the videos and photos on their portfolio and ask yourself, do they have a good on-camera presence? Like, do they seem engaging and bubbly on camera? Do they match the kind of aesthetic and vibe that you're going for? Do they match the demographic to a T that you're looking for? Does it look they use good lighting and good angles? Because what you see on that portfolio is going to be the same quality that you should expect for the actual video production that they do for you. So if you see low quality lighting, really bad angles, maybe they're talking low on camera and you can't even hear what they're saying, those things are things that I think are really important. And in my videos where I tell UGC creators how to optimize their portfolio, I tell them to pay attention to these things and invest in these things, and good creators will do that, and cause you a lot less heartache and stress if you just take the time to go through their portfolio and see if they have good quality. I think the best thing is how they present on camera. Are they awkward on camera? It's so hard to explain to people who don't really, go through hundreds of portfolios and review hundreds of videos every day, what it looks like or feels like when someone is awkward on camera, when it just feels like they shouldn't be in front of the camera. If the person in front of the camera on the ad that you're putting money behind is awkward and is like, yeah, you should really buy this product, is it really going to be convincing? Like, I always tell creators to imagine themselves laying in their bed looking at that video. Would you stop and listen to yourself if you saw that? That's like a good kind of metric to put in your head. I always think that when I'm coming up with concepts, like, would this be interesting enough for me to stop at? And is the personality bubbly enough, or do they look at like the demographic enough to stop and watch the video? So anyways, for some people say to look at the follower count. This would, in my opinion, only be important if you're whitelisting the video, which means the creator sends you a code once they post the video that you can put on the back of your ads library, and it will run as an ad from their account. So it will show up not as insert brand name Flower & Co. It will show up as Danae Tamia, as the person that is promoting the product. So it looks more native. Once you kind of briefly go through the portfolio, questions to ask the creator. If they don't have this on their portfolio, you're not really sure. If you're emailing them, I would say some questions you could ask them is what equipment they use to film. They film with the iPhone. Do they have a tripod, lighting, ring light, that sort of thing? If they have photos of their filming location, where do they normally film? Is it in front of a big window? Is the lighting good? I've worked with brands who had a very specific demographic that would have also a very specific aesthetic. So I would want the creator, let's say it's a kitchen product and we want to have a certain vibe in the kitchen. It's important for me to ask, what does your kitchen look like before they go and film? And their kitchen looks like, I don't know, it was built in like long time ago, and bless them, but we need our ad to convert. So we want our consumer to see themselves in the ad, and this is not gonna help with that. So you wanna make sure that you ask those types of questions as well in email. Usually the creators will have their email in their Twitter bio. Once you find them, you go through their portfolio, they'll have their email, you send them an email, you say, hey, I'm reaching out for an opportunity to create UGC for this brand. I have a few questions. I think you'd be a good fit based on your portfolio, but I do have a few questions. Can you answer them? Whatever. In the initial email, I like to say the rate, or like our budget, what we're willing to pay right up front, and also share examples of what the brief may look like. You don't have to send the exact brief, but just like a kind of brief so they can kind of visualize it, because all these questions cause a lot of back and forth. And because I'm constantly reaching out to a lot of creators, I've kind of found ways around having the least amount of back and forth possible. And some of the things that I think are important to include is the price, because they're going to ask about the rate. They're going to ask about the contract. If you have a contract, so that's what's on the contract. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I would make sure to include little snippets. So say, hey, if you are interested, we'll send you the contract in X amount of hours after, whatever. And the contract will tell you XYZ, so you can take a look at it before you sign it, the price, and also say the contract will include the turnaround time, those types of things, because UGC creators, they care about those things and that's important to them, right? So let's talk about price. I was going to talk about price a little bit later in the video, but since I brought it up, let's talk about it now. I would say you can pay anywhere. I think the average price that I've seen in the industry for 2 UGC video briefs, which would be, you could again turn into multiple videos, but let's say 2 scripted videos where you have the voiceover, 1 hook each, and let's say like 10 to 12 different module shots. Maybe I'll put examples on the screen. For 2 briefs following a similar format to this, you can pay anywhere from $200 to $600 for these 2 videos. That's a good rate. I think that's kind of like the standard that I've seen. If you have a bigger budget or it's a really good creator who you know will crush you, you've already tested the ad concept, you know the ad is going to work well, and you just want this creator's visual, you just want this creator, then, and you have the budget, I think, you know, by all means, definitely pay a little bit more. But if you're a brand just starting out and you're not really sure, I think anywhere within this ballpark makes sense. I would say the 250 mark, 200, that's you're usually going to get beginner creators that maybe have a little bit of experience, but they're not the complete best, and you might have to walk them through the content more, but that doesn't mean they're not going to provide the best content. They do. And then as you get past that 300 plus mark, there are definitely more intermediate experienced creators who know what they're doing, they have all the equipment, and you might have to walk them through things a little bit less. So hopefully that was helpful, but let's backtrack a bit. So in terms of briefing creators, again, if we're focusing on getting UGC at scale, what we want to do is get as much raw footage as possible with different shots and angles that we know we could use as B-roll or in different scenarios for different angles. So almost all of the agencies, brands I've worked with, we've used this kind of modular style briefing. I think it was rated by either Savannah Sanchez or Dara Denny, I'm not sure. Those are two bigger creative strategists in the space. Kudos to them or whoever created it. But this is kind of the format that brands use and sometimes switch around. And you can kind of tweak it to make it make sense for the concepts or angles or the type of brand that you are. But usually it would consist of, so for example, hook one, problem, solution, or problem agitation, solution, continue. And then there would be like shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4. You would put descriptions of each shot and maybe even a photo example and then the script. Depending on the type of angle, you can just get voiceovers. You can just get them to do a script read voiceover or talking to camera voiceover that you can attach onto the B-roll. Or if it's more of a concept where they're talking on screen, you'd get those clips talking on screen and a mixture of voiceover with B-roll. So it really just depends. But we can do a couple things. Like once you kind of get the creator on board, you can send them a brief with a loom attached to it. This is something that I've done a lot where I have the brief, I make a loom video and I say, you know, I'm like, hey creator, this is your brief. I'm just gonna walk you through it a little bit. Maybe they're in a different time zone or you're just really busy and it will be hard to hop on a call with them. The loom allows for you to kind of share any tidbits or information or things that you think are important for them to think about before and when they film. And if not, again, you can get on a call with them and do the same thing. I think it's also really important to just have standard guidelines that you create. So although we're going to look for creators that have experience, that have the equipment, that use good lighting, we want to emphasize this. So you have maybe one set of like really important things you want them to have. So lighting, make sure you have good lighting, make sure you film. If you're a skincare brand and you don't want them to film with makeup, make sure you don't film with makeup. You put like standard kind of things that they should follow on the first page and then the brief on the second page. Another thing that I think is really, really important, especially if you are going to follow my advice and have a team of direct response video editors, is naming conventions and how you want them to give you the content. So let's say they're going to give you the content through Google Drive. You want to make sure that they know how to name the content. So what I like to do personally is name each of the different box modules a number. So shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4, and then instruct the creator to name each shot, to name each file shot 1, shot 2, and then if there's multiple angles, shot 1.1, shot 1.2, shot 1.3, etc., etc. So that way when the video editor is editing and maybe I'm briefing them or you have a creative strategist briefing them or you're briefing them, you can say, okay, shot 1, I want you to put as the first 3 seconds of the video, or maybe you'll have the creator do a hook for the first 3 seconds of the video, so that we can say use hook 1 for the first 3 seconds, and then I want you to put shot 8. And you may have put shot 8 on the like near the end of the video on the brief, but you get the content back and you're like, wait, this is a really good shot, I want it to be in the beginning. So it just makes things easier. And then also, again, because we can reuse this footage and these shots, it allows for you to do that easier. In the future, you can say, go back to content from Sally May, brief 1, shot 8. This is really performing well on our ad account. So having those procedures in place and setting them up in the beginning is gonna be really helpful. So make sure to include a set of standard operating procedures and formats and instructions on your briefs when you begin. And you can also just use ChatGPT for this if you don't really have a big team and it's seeming really daunting right now. It's super easy. Just open up ChatGPT app, put the voice thing on, say, hey, I need you to create a standard operating procedure document for UGC creators using this format. Explain it, it will type it out, and you just copy it, paste it. Maybe you send it to assistant to make it look pretty. You don't even need to make it look pretty, you know? So I discussed already the module format, whatever. Something I will emphasize is that you don't always have to get a full script from them. Let's say you just need specific B-roll and you just need like maybe hooks or specific clips. You can just put that, you can just break it into that. It doesn't need to be a fully formatted ad script, but I would definitely recommend that to make the most out of the collab anyways, because it might just be a couple extra shots for a full script. So I just wanted to add that in there as well. And then lastly, but this shouldn't be last, this should be first, you should have a contract put in place. I usually like to send over the contract before we get started with the collab. So when I work with brands, these are the kind of key points I say to include, and then you go crazy. You could include whatever else you want, but I think these things are the most important. So that's why I'm sharing them. I think the first thing is that you should include the payment terms. So how you're going to pay the creator, when you're going to pay the creator. It's going to make the creator feel comfortable, and it's also going to just kind of set you all off on a good note. Some creators might have criteria like they only work with brands who allow them to get paid when they send watermark content, because there's a lot of, shitty drop shipping brand owners, whatever, ecom bros who don't pay creators, which we do not vibe with over here. So I understand why they do that, and I think that's completely fine. They send you the watermarked version, you like it, you pay them. Maybe you pay them a deposit or you pay them the full amount, and they send you the content not watermarked, and you pay them the rest, or if you pay them already, you get what I'm saying? So some creators might have terms like that, but generally the process that I use with most of the brands I work with is full payment after delivery via PayPal or whatever the brand uses, and we have a specific term. So 7 business days after final delivery. It's very important to do the wording. So, this leads into my next point, which is a lot of times you might need revisions. I think having a baseline of 2 revisions is good. You could even include 3 on the contract, but just give yourself at least 2 revisions, which means you look at the content and maybe you think, oh, this could have been done differently, or I want this shot in a different way, or the audio is bad here. In the contract, it says you are allowed 2 revisions, which means you can go back and say, hey, can you please do revisions? And that's why also the naming conventions is really important, because when I'm asking creators for revisions, I'll say, hey, shot 10, brief 1 is a bit blurry. Can you re-film it? Or your energy is a little bit off in shot 8. Can you also refilm that? And because we have the 2 revisions on the contract, everyone's aware of that. They know that's going to happen, or they know that's a possibility that it can happen. Sometimes you don't need revisions, but it's important to have that. So I'd say add that in there. And also when it comes to the payment terms, make sure that the wording is really good. Again, it's just good for both parties. The wording is on point. So payment is after final revisions approved kind of thing, and not just when you send your first draft, right? Another thing is the turnaround time. So when do you expect to see the content? I would say healthy turnaround time is 36 hours to 7 days after the product is delivered. I think some people kind of push it longer, but most brands I work with, within kind of 36 hours or 3 business days after the product is delivered, it gives them enough time to kind of film. And I would say always send the brief well in advance. So maybe at least a week or 2 before the product arrives. I don't know. Some brands have mad fast shipping out. So I guess it depends how fast your shipping is. But if let's say your shipping is like a week, 5 days time, sending the brief over within that time so they can look over it. They know, okay, this is what I need to film. This is how I'm going to film it. They have that time to kind of mull over, look at your standard operating procedures, how the different criteria that you have for their filming. If they have the ability to do that beforehand, filming should take a lot quicker. But yeah, 3 to 7 days I think is a sweet spot, and it allows you to get your content ASAP. So definitely include that in your contract, and also your rights. How are you going to use the content? So I would say perpetuity rights is important to include. I guess I would leave that up to the brand on how they want to go about it. Most brands, they're getting UGC content, they want to be able to use it within a certain time period. I assume most brands getting UGC want to use the content consistently forever in perpetuity. Some creators might have criteria on how much they charge for that. Some will say, oh, I only want to allow you to use content for 1 year or 2 years. That's like a conversation within the community. I think it's really up to the creator and the brand. If you don't align, you don't align. But if you want to use the content in perpetuity, include that in the contract, make it clear. It's their job to ensure that they go through the contract and they read it. And that's why I say in the initial emails you send, make sure you just include little snippets like the contract is going to detail X, Y, and Z. So that way the creator has no way of saying, oh, I didn't know about this, X, Y, Z. Everything is there, it's clear, everyone's happy, everyone is getting what they want. So make sure to include that. And again, you can use ChatGPT to kind of help with the wording, and definitely I assume you have a lawyer to kind of look over those things, that would be important as well. So I think I covered all of the logistics that I think are important that maybe aren't talked about a lot on getting UGC at scale. These are the processes that I use every single day to help brands. So I hope that it was helpful. And if it was, definitely let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you need help with your UGC or your copywriting or anything like that, definitely take a look at the description. I have all my links there. Yeah, I'll see you next time.